Jeremy Craves, I promised we would get back to you. He wrote in and said, "Yo, CDC, what's a game you love and don't understand the criticism the game receives? I love Ghost of Tsushima and almost take offense to any criticism of it. Vice versa. Colin likes Days Gone and I don't get why. Chris hates Horizon and Colin loves it. Do you hate Horizon? I don't know if that's true.
I don't hate it. I don't. There are things about the more modern one, the most recent one, that I do feel like encapsulates all of the things I do hate about open world design, but I don't hate Horizon.
Okay, fair enough. And then Dustin somehow likes Kingdom Hearts and so on. Thanks for another year of great content. Can't wait to see the new show take shape in 2023. Yes. New show coming January 2nd, 2023. Very excited about that. All right. So, Dustin, let's go to you first. Anything strike you as the game that confuse? He says, what's a game you love and you don't understand the game, the criticism the game receives?
That's really hard for me to answer because I feel like the games I love that have strong criticism, I totally get it. Like, for example, Nier Automata is one where I get why people don't like that game or just can't get into it at all because the aesthetic. I find that frustrating because I think if people were to pull down their barriers a little bit and be a little more open-minded, that they would find something that they wouldn't expect from something like that, something really intriguing and deep. But I get it at the same time. And I don't know, as I get older, I feel less the need to convince people to love the things that I love. I always, it's fun to put up a good fight and try to convince people of things, but it's just like, whatever. I understand that I especially understand for Kingdom Hearts why people don't like it. I feel like at this point I would never try to convince somebody to get into it because I know it's dumb, and that's fine. I still like it.
What comes to mind for you, Chris?
Yeah, it's funny. Like I was racking my brain about this ever since I read it in the document this morning, and it's hard for me to it's hard for me to think of a game that and maybe this is because I don't necessarily pay that much attention, right? Like if I like a game, I just like it, and if somebody criticizes it in some way, I usually just feel like, all right, that's fair. Like it's not every game is for everybody, and I just sort of shrug it off. But I feel like if I were to go through all of the games that I've ever loved, the one I'll say I don't understand the criticisms that have been. I don't understand the hate boner that has randomly popped up for Skyrim over the last several years. Like, I understand that it's really ubiquitous, and I understand that it's very, maybe people are tired of hearing about it and they're tired of seeing it for sale on new hardware or whatever. But like, there's been a kind of universal, like, you know what? In retrospect, Skyrim's not really that good. And for me, that to me is kind of insane because that was a seminal moment in video games. Like that was I remember that. I was in college when that happened, when that game came out. And I remember being absolutely consumed by it. Would I be as consumed by it today? I don't know. It's hard for me to say because I've already played it. But I could easily imagine that had I not played Skyrim before and I just started playing it today, I could see myself getting lost in it in the same way. Maybe not as intensely because I'm a little bit older now. I'm a little bit more jaded. But there's something really special about that game. And yeah, there is something about there being like 5 voice actors total that gets kind of maybe grating. But like to me it's cool that a game can be that engrossing and yet still like you can see the strings. It reminds me of like a really good Broadway play in that sense. Like not one-to-one in the sense that you're being delivered a great narrative, but in the sense that you understand none of this is real. You understand that the characters are walking around a little wonky. You understand that the characters have the same voices as each other, and there are some characters or some actors that are playing dual roles, obviously. And you understand that it's not going to have the depth that is necessarily present in more modern games. But I just think the universal kind of like, no, actually, I'm too cool for that now. Like, actually, I never liked it, actually. I think that's lame and dumb.
Yeah. I think that's lame with everything. I always make that claim with music, especially, where people pretend. No, I brought up Limp Bizkit earlier, where people were like, "Yo, Limp Bizkit always sucked. I hated Limp Bizkit." It's like, dude, Limp Bizkit was huge. I remember everyone loved Limp Bizkit. Yeah. Now it's like, so I've always tried to keep it real. Me and my friend Ramon always talk about that with music, where I'm like, I have no airs. It's just like, whatever. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
As for me, I'm going to answer the question a little differently, because he says a game you love and don't understand the criticism the game receives. I don't love these games, but I don't understand the criticisms of them, and that's Call of Duty. Call of Duty is arguably the most dominant cultural entertainment force ever made. Not only from the amount of money that it makes, but from actually the sheer level of dominance uninterrupted over 20 years. I haven't played Call of Duty in a few years, and I know people have they like the way shooting feels in one game or the other and all the rest. I just think that when you do something at that level for that long, there is clearly something very deep going on that has a lot to do with the way the game feels. It's not just inertial. It's not just it exists, because there are lots and lots and lots and lots of examples of things existing and then not existing, not because they didn't exist per se anymore, but because people moved on. People aren't moving on from this thing. It's clear. This is going on since the PS2. We are now maybe midway almost through the PS5 era, which is crazy. And, maybe a little less, like 2/5 of the way through. And I look at that and I hear people's like, and we don't really talk about it on the show, but I read things and see people talking about, what are you talking about? This thing they made a free version of it and it's still selling more than every other game. And they have the free version of it. And they have the mobile version of it. There's just clearly something there. And I just feel like you got to give it to them. When you think about the Beatles' dominance, now they broke up, of course, but that era was like 6 or 7 years. Is there any film series that is like consistently, people will look at Marvel and I'd be like, have they all consistently been basically the same, one after the other, 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 with a little bit of increase in money and all that? I'm like, I don't think so. They've all been big. That's probably the closest you're going to get to a comparison. And you can't really argue with the Marvel movies either, I don't think. I don't like that they exist in this number, but I also admit that the ones I've seen I've liked. So I don't know. To me, I try to take a bird's eye view on Call of Duty. There's got to be more to it. Society is ADD to the fucking max, and it gets worse and worse and worse. So the longer this goes on, the more it says I think about Call of Duty. I got to just throw that out there. I don't know. It's my take.
That's fair.